Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We will begin in just a few minutes, so hang in there with us and we'll be right with you. Just going to wait another minute or two and we will begin the webinar. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, a discrete manufacturer's guide to evaluating ERP. The webinar is presented by Aptian and hosted by Metal Forming Magazine. I'm Brad Coogan. I'm the editorial director of Metal Forming at the Precision Metal Forming Association, and I'm very pleased to be the moderator for today's session. Before we get started, just a few notes about the Zoom meeting. The meeting is being recorded for archiving, and the recorded event will be posted to the Metal Forming Magazine website within the next few days. So we'll send you out an email when that webinar is available for viewing online and for sharing with others at your company. Also, all of the participants in the meeting are in listen-only mode, which means that the speaker and other attendees will not be able to hear any audio from your site during the program, but you do have the ability, of course, to communicate with us throughout the program by submitting any questions or comments that you have using that Q&A link, which is located at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And then you'll use that same Q&A link after the webinar to ask questions of our presenter. All right, so now it's time to begin today's webinar, which is intended to help manufacturers select the right ERP system for their businesses, a task that is critical to operational excellence and for the long-term health of your manufacturing company. During the session, you'll hear from ERP expert Glenn Julia, who has more than 2 decades of discrete manufacturing ERP experience with more than 100 successful implementations. So Glenn's going to discuss the essential steps needed to evaluate and select an ERP solutions that's tailored to your specific business needs. He'll also be highlighting some industry trends and technology advancements to consider as you make those decisions, and share some practical strategies in order to avoid some common pitfalls, all designed to ensure a smooth implementation with optimum return on investment. So it is my pleasure then to welcome now today's speaker, Glenn Julia. Glenn is an account executive with Aptean, which is a global provider of industry-specific software to help manufacturers and distributors effectively run and grow their businesses. Aptean is headquartered in Alpharetta, Georgia, and has offices in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So please welcome Glenn.
Thank you, Brad. Welcome everyone to the metal forming webinar, a discrete manufacturer's guide to evaluating ERP. And thank everyone for devoting a small part of your day with us. I'm your host, Glenn Julia. So choosing the right ERP system is really critical to the operational excellence and the long-term health of your manufacturing business. In this session, we'll discuss the essential steps to evaluate and select an ERP solution that's tailored to your business needs. As much as things have changed, inevitable changes really are imminent. In business, we should all be asking the same question. Will we be prepared for what's next? Which decade or generation are you currently doing business in? For those that are old enough to remember, sitting and watching the Jetsons on a Saturday morning was no more than a cartoon playing on one of only maybe 4 or 5 TV stations on our parents' rabbit-eared antenna TV. Well, it appears the Jetsons had our future figured out early in the 1960s. Talk about foresight. Well, today, manufacturers globally face a changing and uncertain world. Not quite like flying cars like the Jetsons, but electronic, autonomous vehicles that really drive themselves. So if you manufacture anything from mirrors to motors, how are you dealing with digitization and the speed upon which technology is changing all around you? I don't think one person on this call was prepared for COVID-19 or had it in their 2020 business plans. Globalization and the global economy affect all of us. Will you be prepared for what's next as things really continue to change? ERP is the integrated management of main business processes, often in real time and mediated by software and technology. ERP is usually just referred to as a category of a business management software, typically a suite of integrated applications that an organization can use to collect, store, manage, and interpret data from many business activities. Systems can be local-based or cloud-based. Cloud-based applications have grown in recent years due to the increased efficiencies arising from information being readily available from any location that has internet access. ERP systems track business resources, cash, raw materials, production capacity, and the status of business commitments, orders, purchase orders, payroll. The applications that make up the system share data across various departments. So the flow between all business functions and manages connections to outside stakeholders. The goal of selecting the right ERP system is to ensure that the system will achieve the promise and the results that you expect. All manufacturers are different, but they're all the same. According to the Wall Street Journal, 73% of manufacturers are dissatisfied with their current ERP system. But why? Poor planning, no commitment from management, unreliable data, training and implementation services, the selection process itself, and the business processes that are identified during the initial evaluation were not corrected. So, when should you consider evaluating a change in your ERP system? Simple. Listen to your end users. Are you dependent on Excel? Do you need better control of operations? Inventories are too high. No data on the shop floor. I need to get a better handle on purchasing costs. Customers are not happy. Hard to get to the data. No CRM, or it's just not integrated. Financials are not in real time. Productivity is hampered by multiple steps. Your company's growing, and you don't make business decisions because you don't trust the data on your reports. When going through an evaluation and ultimately selecting a new system, you should have a defined plan consisting of your requirements, an approved internal budget, on-site discovery meeting with potential vendors, product demos, an understanding of how the vendor conducts an implementation, negotiation with vendors, there's always room, and if applicable, a reference to verify your concerns. Unfortunately, our industry is filled with some unscrupulous individuals that only care about making a sale. Remember, you're partnering with the ERP vendor and will hopefully have a long-term partnership. Do your due diligence on the company. If they're not willing to take the time to learn about how you do business, what your business processes look like, or think it's not important to tour your facility, a red flag should go up. Do your homework. With technology today, there's no excuse for not knowing. Take the time to investigate which solution is best for your industry, which company successfully implements that solution, and finally, how will your ERP be supported and trained? Don't be afraid to ask questions at the beginning and all through the evaluation process. This is a good example of the questions I would ask each vendor before inviting them to my facility for an in-depth discovery meeting. What percentage of your revenue is invested in your research and development? Does the parent company utilize partners or resellers? What is the average implementation time for a company our size? Or professional services hours billed as utilized? What type of training is provided? Do you support remote connectivity and mobile use? Is the solution fully integrated? Is the solution industry specific? How are enhancements delivered? Or licenses, user named, or concurrent? Is the system real time or batch oriented? Is offshore services offered? Who implements the solution? And is it cloud based or on premise? Who are you buying from? It's important to know what they know and which other software they market and implement. There's always an advantage to doing business directly with the author of the software and not a reseller that also represents other areas of interest. In a perfect world, you evaluate a solution, see a demo, make a selection, and implement it in 3 months. Again, perfect world. In reality, success depends on the end users. Everyone needs to be on the same page from the top to the bottom, sharing information. It takes patience to realize the benefits and return on investment. Between discouraging employees, bad strategies, and integration issues with your current technology, business disruption is guaranteed. Everyone must be on the same page. Now, there are tremendous benefits that can be realized with an ERP system that is properly implemented, trained, and supported. It's all in one system. The user interface is similar throughout the system. One support, training, and implementation team, so there's no finger pointing. Integrated real-time accounting methods. Eliminate time-intensive steps in your process. Faster access to critical information. Logical next step into the mobile space, a quicker time to action based on intelligent menus, functional role-based solutions via workspace environments, viewing, drill down, reporting, and navigation of your information, menus and reports from one location, automated processes increasing the speed to business functions, integration with Microsoft applications, improved customer relationship management and services, higher accuracy and control over processes will likely increase the value of your company, increased overall productivity and profitability, and finally, increased levels of financial and organization visibility. If you're concerned, you may select the wrong ERP. Always recommend a business plan that you and your ERP vendor follow throughout the evaluation process and make them responsible for exceeding your expectations and meeting your timelines. Document your company's critical requirements and unique business flows. Confirm your critical list is met by the software vendors being considered. Eliminate those that do not. Understand where you currently spend effort, money, skill, systems, resources, and paper. Provide a day in the life of your company to allow the vendor ample opportunity to present the benefits that best fit your needs. Expected benefits of the solution's functionality based on the results of a thorough on-site discovery meeting. Arrange for a proof of concept, setting up the system around your requirements, entering your data, and presenting the system so it's recognizable. Ask the vendor, using their standard system, to walk you through their top risk and reward areas and demonstrate how their system produces the key deliverables. According to a study by Deloitte Consulting, companies selected an ERP system for the first time bought on price. Their second time, it was based on support by the implementation team. The price was number 5. Would you spend 100% of the price of the solution and only utilize less than 40% of the functionality? Number one reason, lack of training and dedication to the project. There are hard costs and soft costs involved with the selection of an ERP system. The cost component that is usually the last considered is your internal labor for implementation. Remember, there will be a disruption in business before you receive any benefit and return on your investment. When planning for the implementation project, choose what works best for your company. The reverse 80-20 rule is focusing the initial go-live training primarily on the core 20% of the functionality that the employees will use 80% of the time. Initial training should concentrate on speed to efficiency of the greatest usage of the system. Practice makes perfect. The more relevant the training, the more effective it will be. So make it as real as possible. Don't overwhelm. Try to keep it as simple as possible and focus on what the learners need to know about the technology to help them be more effective at their jobs. If possible, the best option is always partner with the author of the ERP, especially when it comes to services and support. Ask who does what, which company they represent, where the services will come from. Are they truly providing full service? It may take over 2 years to know the true cost of the system implementation. Some ERPs are still available on premise, whereas the trend is overwhelmingly going to cloud-based systems. Both have pros and cons. In the cloud, obviously, affordability, ease of deployment, management services, and no additional hardware investment would be a pro. Perceived cons would be long-term costs, less flexibility, and security concerns. On-premise, greater customization, license purchase versus the subscription, and greater security. Cons being long deployment time, scalability, remote offices and mobile workforce. Most customizations will not convert with updates and the upfront cost. The perception of on-premise being less expensive is like an iceberg. It's what you don't see that winds up costing you more. Like any other monthly expense, ERP is budgeted in the same manner and should be considered as such. Aberdeen Group says that 50% of manufacturers have an increasing willingness to evaluate cloud ERP. Gartner says that spending on ERP will increase by 109%. KPMG's cloud survey report shows that 49% of businesses using cloud to drive business transformation drive cost efficiencies. 42% have better enabled their mobile workforce. 37% improved alignment with customers and partners. 35% have better leverage over their data to provide insight. 32% use it for new product development and innovation. 30% to develop new business models. 28% shifted to a global shared service model, and 28% realized a faster time to market. So to recap, the goal is to ensure the system will choose achieving the promise and results that you expect. Look for an ERP that is flexible and robust, one that will adapt to how you do business and not force you to change to match their process. Have a business case. Document your processes, questions, why. Provide your critical requirements and integrations. The demo needs to be about your company, with your data, with your interest in mind. The intent is to present the system as if it were live at your facility. Good news, a successful ERP evaluation can be easier than you think. Imagine working smarter, saving time, and increasing productivity. If you're considering evaluating a new ERP system for your company, I would like to help. I work with Aptean, and I represent exclusively the App Central for Discrete Manufacturing ERP solution, which is the Made to Manage edition. If you're looking for a robust and flexible ERP from a company that has well over 10,000 successful projects, provides full education and support from one vendor, working directly with that author, I would like to help by providing consultative strategies beyond ERP. So we engage with prospective customers, ensuring the proper fit. We agree on priorities, generate a mutual sequence of events, and offer an easy onboarding implementation solution. By accelerating the results, we're following the mantra of being rapid, agile, and effective through our easy onboarding methodology. So who is Aptean? So with 60 offices globally, we are based in Alpharetta, Georgia, with a focus on the era of digital transformation to help streamline your business processes. We offer tailored ERP that adapts cloud-based technology to your requirements, giving you a competitive advantage. From ERP software to professional services, we help you increase productivity, save time, and positively affect your bottom line. It was a pleasure spending part of our day with you, and I sincerely thank you for your time and attention. We would now like to open the call to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, for a really informative, straightforward, and pretty easy to follow presentation. Really good methodology, a lot of good advice in all those slides. We do have plenty of time for questions. If you got a question for Glenn, please go ahead and pop it into that Q&A panel at the bottom of your Zoom screen while we're waiting for some of the attendees to ask some questions. Glenn, I got a couple of things I'd like to follow up with you. You talked a little bit about the ability of the ERP to be integrated with other softwares. Can you go into a little bit more detail on what the benefits that you can expect if you're really able to smoothly integrate ERP, if that's the right word, with other software products?
Sure. When we talk about integration, if it's app driven, as an example, and it's bundled, there's a tremendous benefit to an integrated solution versus having one ERP that does certain things, one scheduling tool that only does scheduling, one tool that only does payroll, one tool that only does shop floor, as examples. All the languages that these softwares are written in may or may not communicate thoroughly. If they don't communicate, they have to have tags or bridges between them to allow for that communication. So if I, being from New Orleans, only spoke Cajun French as an example, and you only spoke Spanish, it would be one hell of a conversation because we couldn't understand one another.
Yeah.
But if someone stepped in and was able to speak both languages and can translate, we could have a conversation. The problem is the translation is not always going to be 100% clear. Same thing with an integration between a scheduling tool and my ERP outside of the ERP. If there's a translator needed, there's going to be manual entries necessary. There's going to be disconnect possibilities. It's just not a clean, integrated, all-in-one solution. So anytime you can find a solution that's fully integrated, that's an optimal option.
Yeah, I got you. Good. Okay, thank you. So I've talked to plenty of companies, and you have too over the years, where they're on older systems. The system still works, so they've got the belief that if it ain't broke, why spend the time and energy and cost to fix it? What's the response to the if it ain't broke, why fix it kind of
Well,
mantra?
I'll refer back to my third slide, which showed the Jetsons. Perfect scenario.
Yeah.
So back in the early 60s, no one had cell phones. No one talked to their doctor via screen. No one did Zoom meetings with their boss sitting at a desk at their home. No one had a robot vacuuming their floor, as examples. So when we talk about it ain't broke, don't fix it, why does anyone today own flat screen, huge televisions in their home? Why does everyone own the latest and greatest cell phone? Why in business are we not doing everything via fax still today, and so on and so on? The fact to say that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, how do you keep up with the competition? If your competition is doing things within technology to better serve their customers, how long is it going to take before you lose your customers to the competition? Because they're taking advantage of everything available to them today to make better decisions quicker. And the old it ain't broke, don't fix it doesn't fly in today's world of technology.
Sure.
Because most companies are already 5 to 10 years behind.
Good. Yeah, good answer. So from the audience, the question is in trying to decide then if an upgrade is really warranted, when companies perform a gap analysis, what are some of the key elements they should be including in that gap analysis? And if you want to answer that one, then there's a couple follow-up questions as well.
So when you say gap analysis, I'm referring to gap analysis in relation to the evaluation of that specific ERP. And I can use some examples that I know of, but without using, ERPs by name. It's like holding up a piece of Swiss cheese that's full of holes. And we do white space events and say, the functionality that exists within this ERP, quote unquote, out the box consists of X. Well, the gap analysis, I'm guessing you're referring to, is the pieces that are missing from the ERPs and where do they fall in relation to our needs. So just because it comes out the box with tons of functionality could be the case of I don't need it, but I'm getting it. But yes, you're paying for it. Versus I'd rather pay for it now, need it later, and not have to pay extra for it later down the road. So when doing a gap analysis on functionality, it's extremely important to know what comes out the box, number one. Number two, what um, what functionality is part of that author's own software versus third party that you're bringing in that eventually may or may not be integrated.
Okay. And maybe I can, from my perspective, what I think maybe gap analysis might also mean, and maybe the person asking the question can clarify too, but maybe, so they're trying to decide if an upgrade is warranted. They're going to evaluate their own company and its needs for the types of solutions that ERP can provide, right? Analyzing data, collecting data, analyzing data, coming up with some suggestions on how to improve performance based on that data. So if they're analyzing their own company, let's say by department, what should they be looking at within the department to see if their current ERP is not living up to the expectations any longer? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And that's one thing that we do when we go on site to do an in-depth discovery meeting with the customers. We're looking for reasons you aren't achieving certain business goals. It considers where you are, where you want to be, and looks for the reasons that prevent your success, the bottlenecks.
Yeah.
With that information, we're able to create an action plan that really closes those gaps. So in many ways, a gap analysis is an efficiency tracker, and we always look to improve what you don't do well. And you can use a gap analysis in any department within your organization. For example, a sales team might not hit desired sales numbers, or customer service department may spend way too much money on each call, too much
Yeah.
time on each call.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause long wait periods. And these would be specific gaps that need to be addressed. So if we see on a shop floor, um, a product is moving throughout the process, but yet not moving in a way that we identify a bottleneck. I've personally been to well over 500 manufacturing facilities in my career, and I can assure you I've walked through a plant and walked the same plant with the same guy who's been there for 10 years. He sees the same problem every day, but doesn't see it the same way I do.
Yeah.
And when I bring it up and ask the question, he goes, huh, I haven't thought of it that way. So
Right.
it's an extra set of eyes.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So then I guess you would recommend doing that by department.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
When we do the in-depth discovery, we break down every department within the company and we interview those people. And the interview provides the basis of what we use as a proof of concept when we go back to do an actual demonstration into the functionalities and benefits of our integrated products.
Yeah. Very good. And then the last follow-up question then is something that I'm sure you hear all the time is, how do we get buy-in from the various stakeholders, the users on the floor to the managers in the office, and all the way down the line? How do you get, you got a recommended best practices for getting buy-in from the stakeholders?
um, that's gonna differ from company to company, culture to culture, age to age. It's really, you have to be careful how far you push the limit on trying to convert someone's way of thinking to your way of thinking by giving them logical reasons to agree. What I like to do, and again, going back to the Jetsons, I used to love the Jetsons, but going back to that time, and I can put a great example. Last week, I was at a prospects facility, and we had 8 people at the table. And when I asked the question about who at this table is not thinking in a positive manner of moving forward with technology, and of course, no one raised their hand. And I said, well, who's against change? One person raised their hand. And I said, that's fair and that's honest. Explain to me why you're against change. And I put them on the spot. And as they were talking, and I asked a question, and I looked at the table and I said, tell me why you have an iPhone 16 sitting in front of you. And of course, they went on to talk about the benefits of the iPhone 16. And I asked, well, why don't you still have a Motorola flip-top phone? It only receives phone calls and text. And they explained the benefits of why they have what they have.
Yeah.
And of course, I went down the path of, well, when you are at home and you have to get up to go change the channel on your 13-inch black and white TV, is that inconvenient? Of course, they said, I don't have that. I have a remote control. I said, well, then you're not resistant to change, because in your personal life, change is irrelevant. You're going to do what is convenient for you personally. Why would you not bring that same mentality into your profession? And that gets them thinking. And resistance to change at that point really it's a moot point.
Yeah, good. That's a very good answer as well. So we have another question here on pricing, and I know you'd rather deal with that offline. Maybe you can put the slide with your email address back up, the previous slide. If anybody wants to talk to you about what they can expect in terms of pricing, yeah, there it is. But the other question is time to launch, from planning to launch, and I'm sure every situation is unique, and you probably have
It
a range in
is.
mind, but is there just kind of a rough estimate? So this particular user, or this question, comes from a company that has 40 users, which I don't know. Is there any
There
way
is.
to
There
guesstimate
is.
that planning to? Okay.
And the way I would answer that question, and if I was sitting in front of a prospect and he says, look, we have 40 users, how long is it going to take to get live? My answer would be, how much time are you planning to devote to the implementation project? Number
Sure.
one. Number two, who's going to do the data conversion? Are we going to do it? Or are you going to do it? Number three, I think the most important question I ask is, the person signing the deal, the ultimate decision maker, the one cutting the check, is that person going to be driving this project from day one till the end? That's going to determine how serious your end users are. And I can assure you that the majority of the ERP companies that are out there selling their products, their salespeople can care less about that question. I care about it. And the reason is, of all the deals I've sold, 120 something ERP deals, I have a 100% success rate in my implementations. The reason that is if the project is not given the gold seal of approval, and the person making the decision is not going to be pushing the project, I would prefer not even sell that deal. because I know it's going to fail.
Yeah.
So a 40-user deal on average should take 6 to 9 months if the right person's continually pushing it, if data conversion is going to be shared, and if the company's willing to devote the time that it takes based on our project manager to get the deal done. Because we're going to lay out an entire implementation plan for you from the beginning to the end.
Right.
Once you go live, here's another important aspect that people don't ever think about or realize or even position. That's the period between after you've gone live and when are you really getting a return on that investment. I call that the 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 time of true learning. So once you're fully enabled and you've put the white flag up and say, you know what, I finally got it. At that point, you can start getting a return on investment that you hope to get when you went live.
Right. Very good.
Self-sufficiency, I call it.
Right. All right, good. Thank you for that. Another question that I think is top of mind for most people in manufacturing and in general is artificial intelligence. And so where do you see AI playing a part in ERP?
That really depends on how you want to use AI. We're not talking about creating a robot that's going to sit behind a desk and do all the work and replace an employee. But AI should give you insight into how do I. So think of training. Every company has that one or two people I call the how do I departments. They know everything. I don't know how to do such and such in my system. So I walk over to Jane. Jane, do you remember how do I do? And then Jane knows the answer. Well, with AI, there should be an area within that ERP that you can simply type how do I and then fill in a blank. And then the system is intuitive enough to go into the historical data, to go into what you've looked for in the past, to go into help menus, etc., and spit back the answer. How do I? And give you the answer, give you the link to go to the site so that you can actually do what you're asking. It should also get to the point where it's going to think for you. Let's say right now, most companies that use ERP use something called a dashboard. That dashboard is just quickly becoming out of style because everyone has it. It has a bunch of circles, bunch of graphs, bunch of numbers, bunch of colors. Well, AI should be able to tell you, one of the things I'd want to know is, do I have enough inventory to complete these 10 jobs? Here's a question. Well, if I can go in and ask my AI bot, do I have enough inventory to create 10 jobs? It should go into my system and tell me that answer without me having to go look anywhere else. And those are two of the things that Aptean is bringing to market now as a differentiator, hopefully within ERP. But how long is it going to take before people catch up? It's just going to be a common thing like a dashboard.
That's cool. So you and I talked a little bit before we started the event on this thought that a lot of companies believe that most ERPs are more or less the same. If you had to pinpoint just one or two things maybe that our folks online could use to differentiate or to help them identify the things that might make it clear to them which is the best choice, what would those one or two things be to differentiate?
When you look at a differentiator in ERP, you're right. They all pretty much look alike. When the judges of the Miss America pageant or sitting there looking at 50 ladies. They all look to see the same thing, but then they try to find that one thing that's maybe different than the others. ERP is the same. Every vendor does something that's slightly different, not necessarily better. You may have a solution that's fully integrated with no outside third-party products. That's a differentiator. You may have something that is catered to a specific industry. That would be a differentiator. You may have something that only does offshore implementations. Their services people are able to save you a ton of money, but it's being done in India. That's a differentiator. It's not necessarily better, but it's different.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. And then, I mean, we do still have time. If anybody online still has any other questions for Glenn, go ahead and use that Q&A panel. Is one of the differentiators, I think, is something that we talked about too, which is advanced scheduling. Maybe talk a little bit about.
That's a major one in my opinion, because being Apex certified, in inventory, I look at how people do scheduling, and I cringe. I go to shops that have whiteboards outside with tape and markers, and that's how they do scheduling. I see people use spreadsheets to do their scheduling, and that's left to someone, which human error is every day. A differentiator for Aptean is we have advanced planning and scheduling as part of our solution. I can refer to other ERPs. Acumatica charges $8,000 a year. N4 has one, I believe, is $12,000 a year. Oracle has one that's almost $20,000 a year. So they're not part of the core ERP. It's products that you have to purchase outside of the ERP. That's a huge differentiator for Aptean.
Yeah. Does artificial intelligence have a role in advanced scheduling? Maybe interpreting some warehouse data or order volumes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're populating the information, right, that data has to come from somewhere. It's machine learning. So the more information you put, it takes time. It's not going to, the machine's not going to learn everything it needs overnight. But the more you put in, the more you get out. And for scheduling, for synchronization, for doing what if scenarios, it'll be able to understand. My favorite customer's on the phone and he says, I need it now. If I put his order in front of 10 other people, how's that going to affect my shop floor? Do I have the inventory for raw goods to be able to meet that demand? If I push the other orders out, am I going to miss their dates?
Right.
All that's things that are calculated now that advanced planning and scheduling can do, but AI can do better.
Right. Okay. All right, Glenn. Well, that was a lot of great information. I don't see any other questions in the queue. So I will thank you again for an outstanding presentation, a lot of information to chew on there. Thank you again to our audience for attending the program. We hope everyone found it to be valuable. And again, as I said earlier, an archive of the event will be available on our website within the next couple of days. We will send you an email to let you know when it's there. And you'll be able to review it again and share it with others within the organization. So thank you, Glenn. Thanks everybody for attending. You can close your browsers now and have a great afternoon.
Yep. Thank you, Brad. Thank everyone for your time and attendance.
Okay. Bye-bye.